One of the things that is most admirable about Ruskin is the fact that although he was defeated time and again in bringing his plans for making the world a more humane and loving place to fruition, he never abandoned the attempt. He announced the formation of St George's Company because he was tired of hoping that people would resolve to take better care of nature and their fellow human beings. The company's task was to make England habitable and beautiful once again. We are that company. We are in company together. To make it beautiful once again, to create an island of kindness on which people lived at ease with nature, and that would, in due course, supplant the degenerate state which had come to dominate his native land. Largely, Ruskin believed the result of what he called his contemporaries' unfettered rage to be rich. And I think today we've had some fantastic input, particularly from Bernard, on some of those early days, the companions and the links between Bewdley and Birmingham, which we will unfold as the years go by. Can you hit the button for me?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, go for it. So, we're going to talk a bit about Bewdley and the Wyre Forest. And just to tell you where it is, those of you who don't know, we're about 20 miles southwest of Birmingham. Next one. And there's a map showing Kidderminster to the right. We're just off the River Severn, and Unclis Farm, where I live, and St George's Farm, where Lynne lives, is just in the middle of that picture. Next one. We've tried over the years, I've been there 12 years now, and we're just going to say a little bit about my little journey and then hand over to the others. But the bit that really struck myself and my wife Linda when we started getting into Ruskin, and I must admit before we became tenants, Ruskin was a word I'd heard, but I didn't realise it was a whole movement, way of life, people prepared to spend a whole Saturday in this place listening and learning more about it. This particular quote, we will take some small piece of English ground and make it beautiful, peaceful and fruitful. We've adopted that really as our almost mantra, but trying to see what we can do about it. Next one. So what does the Guild own in the Wyre Forest? Well, it started with the red bit. Down here is St George's Farm, which includes the original gift of Baker called, to this day, Ruskin land. And in the 1930s, the bigger parcel was added. In fact, it was 1930, wasn't it? Yeah. Yes. The bit edged in black, and in that you can see the green bit is Unclis Farm. Now, further research is probably required, but it seems that the purchase was, in some extent, an attempt to stop the Forestry Commission buying it and taking all the oak trees down and planting Sitka spruce, lodgepole pine, or whatever, Douglas fir. And obviously we've succeeded to this day. But we have them as neighbours, we get on extremely well, but they're not planting conifers on our land. Thank you. Next one. So that's as it is from the air. Unclis has got that little red, green arrow on it. You can see the space further north of St George's Farm. Next one. So that's me and this is Iles. Next one. Because you're going to say weird things about me, I'm sure. I have lost weight since then. Our journey. So since 2003 is when our life started to change from being normal, living in a house, having a proper job and all the rest of it. And it's all down to this gentleman on my right, Dr. Cedric Quayle, who mentioned that there might be an opportunity coming up to take on a tenancy at Unclis Farm. We put in an application after much thought and went for an interview where Jim Dearden, who's been referred to earlier today, floored me with his first question, which was, what do you know about Ruskin? A deep sigh of panic, what am I going to say next? Then the next question came from Daniel Lovett, who's the agricultural advisor, who said, what do you know about farming? Well, not much of that either. But anyway, bless them, they gave us the chance, and over the next few years, we put up 1.8 kilometres of fencing, started the grazing herd, planted over 150 new fruit trees, and now those fruit trees are starting to do wonderful things like bear fruit. In 2007, the whole grazing thing was getting a bit out of hand, and we were being asked to do lots and lots of other things. I thought, we can't do this ourselves, so we formed the Wyre Community Land Trust. And we have three of us founding directors here today, Jenny Robbins, Richard Rundell, saw Richard a minute ago, so there, and we're still active to this day. And then in 2010 we built the Ruskin studio. Next one, moving on. So we're very conscious of treading in the footsteps and seeking to learn from and follow those who've gone before. On the left of the picture, a number of the Quayle family, including Cedric's grandfather, and in the picture too, the Watsons and some of the others who I don't know who they are. But Cedric will tell us on another occasion. Next one. So what we've been trying to do, these sort of objectives: respect the natural world, provide meaningful work, produce some good food, and try and live out that statement that I read out at the beginning. Next. But ultimately, we can drone on about cows till the cows come home, but it's all about people. And what's been so encouraging over the years is the way in which somehow or other we've drawn people together, and it's still growing as more people get drawn in. Out of the cows grazing, we have these fantastic wildflower meadows, and I'm awfully pleased that Professor David Ingram, back up there, has offered to help us to maintain our quality standards by visiting each year and monitoring our work to make sure that what we're doing is the best possible quality. For those of you who are not imbibed with passion for the natural world the same way as we are, these wildflower meadows to us are like a Turner. You know, it is so easy to destroy. It's like taking a Stanley knife to a Turner. Just one application of fertiliser would damage it forever. David's nodding. Move on. And we see the fruits of that in some fantastic orchids and other wildflowers. Next. And this sort of meadow here, we've lost a huge percentage of these lowland meadows over the years, and we're doing our little bit, we hope, to roll that back, and I expect Tim will touch on that a bit later on. The orchards are being replanted, the fruit is on the table at the back. The ones that are Hereford russets you can eat before we go, because I picked those yesterday. Next one. The fruit is there for all to share. Next. Blossom times, amazing. Next one. And I was hoping he was here today, but this is Mark Cleaver. Sadly, got flu this morning, pruning the old fruit trees. We've got to look after what we've been left in terms of the biodiversity of them. These old fruit trees harvest the rarest insects in Britain, so we have to steward that. And the idea is that we keep them alive as long as possible. We've learnt new skills. Next one, Jim. Learning how to cut up timber, building this timber frame building, which we call the Ruskin Studio, which now that Tim and his colleagues have actually moved out, this became the office. He's available for all sorts of conferences, workshops, seminars, you know, training courses. Jeanette learning how to do basket making here. Bless you, Jeanette. Next one. And visits. This is a group of Asian women learning English and came to visit the farm, and we used the farm as a vehicle of doing English. Church groups, and even wonderful mysterious dinners. There's a picture of, next one, even a picture of Jim, because he couldn't be here today. Next one.
Extremely mysterious.
And now we're moving into having, there's been a serious sequence of upgrading Uncliff's farm, upgrading the bungalow, upgrading St George's farm. This is all the stuff that Chris is referring to about investing in our properties. We're now turning our attention to the woodland, which Tim will explain more in a minute. But it's been a privilege and a joy to do it. Next one. And there's two things we have to tackle, which we won't drone on about today. Can anyone see the creature in the picture? Oh, it's good on the laptop. Okay, don't worry. There's a deer in the middle of it. And we have to protect all our young trees against the deer, because if they will nibble all the young shoots. I'm sorry about the quality of the picture. Next one. And we have to guard against this. Can you see anything on that picture?
You know what the visual's like, you sat here.
Yeah. We forget it. There's a picture of a squirrel. Can you see a squirrel? I was doing a squirrel last night. But for another time, this is a red squirrel, if you can't see it on the picture. It's actually taken on the Isle of Wight. We have problems. The previous picture showed you a lovely oak tree, probably about 10 to 12 years old. The top is totally dead. because the grey squirrels had ring-barked it. And those lovely woodlands that we live in, and we're not allowed down on woodlands, we would not get those woodlands now because of grey squirrels. So there's a really serious issue here to get those converting ground. Next one. We're gathering seeds to start a new tree nursery. Next one. And we've involved lots and lots and lots of people. I'm going to hand over to Jenny, who's going to talk about her personal journey and very briefly, and the volunteers.
Thank you, John. I think actually what I'm going to say first is, I think it's a huge thank you to John, because without John, this place wouldn't have become what it is now. Because when Cedric actually allowed John and Linda to move to Untys, I'm not quite sure that Cedric knew what was going to happen. Certainly, I don't think they would have expected what happened. And from John's kind of energy, all these other things have followed. So, I'll very quickly, because I'm all over time. I live in Bewdley, and I'm very fortunate to have some land, and the cows come and graze on our land in the winter. So I can see the cows for the Land Trust out of our bedroom window, which also means that the cows are very public. They're part of our outreach, if you like, because people can walk through Bewdley, they can walk across the fields and they see the calves, and I think the Girl Guides come and see them, and the Scouts and so on, and it's a part of this nature, this getting people involved is all part of what we're doing. There's lots of people involved in all the groups we do. I think flip forward to. And as John says, it involves lots of people. We're very fortunate, John's already referred to them, to have a board of directors at the Land Trust who bring with them all sorts of different skills, volunteer lots of time and energy, and have kept the thing going for 10 years. And I'm very hopeful that with Tim and other people coming on board, we've got lots more energy to take us forward for the next 10. We've developed, there we've got 3 teams of volunteers who work in the woodyard, in the estate management team, doing hedges and planting things and looking after the land for us, and we've got a number of landowners who entrust us with their land, and we look after it for them, bring it back into proper management. We're now developing a woodland team. We're very keen. We've got 2 teams now, I believe, in a week. We've got Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We've now got teams of volunteers coming and doing things, helping us develop with minor things in the woodland. Obviously, we don't send them all out with chainsaws. And we partner with lots of other groups. There's lots of other people come up. As John's illustrating, we've had other people come up. There's the Girl Guides, was in one of those pictures. We've worked with this local civic society, and we work a lot broader than that as well, with other groups coming now from Birmingham, from Lynne's work. And John's put the Beauty Museum at the bottom there, and I think it might be just worth noting for what Chris said earlier. Beauty Museum, of course, only exists because of the Guild. Part of what the Guild did a long time ago was buy part of the brass foundry that's all part of Beauty Museum. And it's some of the energy and the gift from the Guild that set up Beauty Museum over 40 years ago now. So I think we can see a legacy then from earlier work that was done by the Guild, that we now have a museum in Bewdley, which the council still run. We still, as the Guild, sit on the management committee. And so I think it's important to note that. And I chair the Friends of the Museum as well, and we've got our own volunteers, and that's another community aspect. And we work very closely with. We're very aware that Ruskin land is a small and special place, and we don't want lots and lots of people trampling through it. The Beauty Museum gets nearly 200,000 visitors a year, so we're very looking at ways of working with them to make sure that people learn more about what's going on locally through the museum, if they can't all come up to Ruskin land. But I think that'll do for now. For Tim, you want to?
I'm Lynne. As Clive said earlier, I live lucky enough to live in the middle of Ruskin land, and I want to tell you a little bit about the education and cultural programme that Neil and myself have been working on over the last year. We've had some seed funding from the Guild for this year, which has enabled us to do lots of things actually. So we've had 4 consultation seminars right across the country, 1 in Birmingham, 2 in Ruskin land, and 1 in London, with about 30 to 35 people attending to each seminar. They've ranged, the breadth of people that have come have been lots of artists connected to Sheffield with Ruth, as well as a young poet from Birmingham who was only 17, who came and told us about ideas she had, right through to the executive director of the Woodland Trust who came to the London seminar. We've also had lots of really successful public events. So we had a fantastic wasp sale last winter, and we'll be repeating it again in January. We had a blossom walk where we had a talk from a really brilliant woman who told us all about bees. And then a butterfly picnic with the butterfly conservation group in the area, who, again, those are butterflies are needing to be hugely looked after. I've been building a relationship with a local primary school in Kidderminster who have 65% free school meals, and people will know that that means there's a lot of property on that particular estate. And so we've had family picnics and people coming up from the school, and those are some boys, I hope you can see at the bottom, reading about the butterflies. And then only last weekend, which fits in nicely with Kate's talk, we did our big draw and apple day at Ruskinland, and I'm hoping that we might have some sound in a moment, because we've got a short film to show you about that.
Delicious apple.
Getting harder? You're going to need all your muscles in a minute.
It's over there near the bucket. Wow.
You might have to stick it down a bit. Look at those. Those are...
I found myself lying on the bank of a cart road in the sand, with no prospect whatever but that small aspen tree against the blue sky. Languidly, but not idly, I began to draw it, and as I drew, the languor passed away. The beautiful lines insisted on being traced without weariness. More and more beautiful they became as each rose out of the rest and took its place in the air.
So the other brilliant thing about being at St George's is we have loads of fantastic visitors. So Clive referred to Arjun from New Delhi, who came to stay a few weeks ago, having read one of Stu's articles about Ruskin and being so inspired that he obviously was following Gandhi and went all the way to the forest in Russia for a whole month and chopped wood, and then came and visited us at Ruskinland. This again is Lauren in the middle, who I've referred to at the beginning, who had never sat around a campfire. So she came back recently with her friends and her family to sit around the campfire. And I meant to say as well, thank you to Annie, who gave us this beautiful statue by her great-grandfather, but also gave us loads and loads of art materials that we used on the big draw days. So thank you very much for that. At the top is another visitor. That's Joel, who is a dancer with a group called Kanduko, who, if you haven't heard of them, they're worth looking up. He was at Sadler's Wells dancing last week, and he wants to come and do a dance in a tree. He has such big upper body strength. He can climb a tree and wants to do a performance in the forest. And that's a little girl from Bircham Coppice enjoying hide and seek. We've also done lots of talks and local consultations. Neil spoke to 120 people recently at the Bewdley Civic Society. He's also been here to speak to people, and we had Sarah Atwood speak at our opening London seminar. We've consulted with local people at the Far Forest Show and at Bewdley Market, me and Jenny, and actually lots of people have heard of Ruskin but don't know about their local Ruskin land. So we also have communications through the internet. You can see that list there. And Neil has just had a chapter published in a book called Arboreal, which is at the back for people to look at. We'll be entering the big draw for the prize in 2017, and that's our very silly duck house that we painted for the Bewdley competition, where there are 56 duck houses painted this year. And then on numbers, we've had over 650 direct contacts, around 150 visitors to the blog News from Ruskin Land, and have over 200 Twitter followers. And I just want to finish with a couple of quotes. One is from Ruth and her granddaughter who came to the big draw, who said, "I have enjoyed myself so much today. I haven't drawn since I was a little girl, and now I have a drawing of a horse in an exhibition," which is at the Bewdley Museum, by the way. And another person called Caroline said, "This was such a fantastic event. I've learned so much today about Ruskin and his connection with the forest." So we're now working together on developing a future programme, building on all we've already done, which will lead up and include 2019. And I'll hand over to Tim.
Okay, the final slot. I'm just going to say a little bit about where the Land Trust is going now. I've been with the Land Trust since January, and it's a great pleasure and honour to take the Land Trust on from John and to work with the Guild. It's a fantastic opportunity, and I hope what we can do over the next few years is really make this fruitfulness come out of the Land Trust and the land that we've been entrusted to manage on behalf of the Guild. One of the things we've started to do is to build Ruskin more into the core branding and message that the Land Trust. So we've actually come up with a new brand which we're going to trade under, using for our oak and our meat and our other products, using Ruskin Land, which is the real place that we work in conjunction with the Wyre Community Land Trust. So we've got this very bold R, which is a William Morris typeface, which has been roughened up a little bit. It's quite important we don't lose the Wyre Community Land Trust too, because the community and the land and the trust is really the core work that we do. So we're going to run the two things together, but build Ruskin into the everyday stuff we do too. The Guild and who are giving us a lot of core support, and the Land Trust, which is being built up by John, have now chucked a pedal into a big pond, and the ripples are really starting to flow out. And this gives you a flavour of what's happening in this random way. Over the last year, we've gone from 2.5 staff, to now we've got 5.5 staff. So we're beginning to grow, and that energy is beginning to create more and more fruitfulness. Each week we get something like 35 volunteers coming out, as Jenny said, in 5 different groups. Now that works out to around about 1,800 volunteer days every year. That's equivalent to something like 10 jobs, 10 full-time jobs. So the energy that goes into the organisation is beginning to do so much that the staff alone couldn't do. And that's reflected in terms of the work that all the directors do. Most of the directors do actually come out for at least a day a week doing things, running teams, doing the accounts, and so we've got a very active group of directors too. And then with Lynne and Neil, who are stretching us in all sorts of ways, intellectually, artistically, taking us to places we never thought we would go. So there is a great sort of new dimension that different people add to it. So the pebble, the ripples are going out more and more and more. And that's reflected in well, I added those in, but you can't really see them. We do have a lot of extra helpers in terms of people. The little picture is John and his horse Duke, who do a lot of work towing timber out of the wood. And of course our Dexter cattle, we've got 55 Dexter cattle that do all the mowing and work we have to do on the land. We also, with our building around us, and we've heard a lot about the other, I'm always in awe of what Ruth does in Sheffield, but a lot of the collaborators and partners. So we have some longer term relationships now building up with the Woodland Trust, people like Plunkett and the Helen McInnes Trust, and they are long term. They're giving us 3-5 years funding to build the work up. We want to build these partnerships and collaborations, and I'm particularly proud of the new collaboration that the Guild have created with the Land Trust and 42nd Street. And it's more the sort of thing we want to do. Now, 42nd Street are a charity in Manchester that do work with young people that have mental health and other issues, people that have been excluded from normal schools and that sort of system. Their new building is called the Horseful, and I'm going to be on shaky ground now. I'm looking at Julie. And Thomas Horseful was a Victorian philanthropist who followed some of Ruskin's ideals and set up the. Yep. Now there's an interesting partnership now where we're using Ruskin land to host some of Julie McCarthy, 42nd Street's clients. They're coming down, and these young people are working in the woods to build a structure that they're going to take back to Manchester made out of Ruskin land oak, working with a timber framer. So we want this resource we have in the forest to be used for a lot of different purposes. Now, some of the core work we've got to do, which is really interesting. John's talked about the work that has been developed over the last 10 years, working on the land, finding a new way to manage these disparate bits of land, working with about 20 different landowners, bringing it together so it makes sense and makes an economic and practical sense to manage. We're now doing the same thing with the Guild Woodlands. The Guild have entrusted us with their woods, and we're also working with about 10 other woodland owners. These woods have not been touched for a long time, and they need management. The biodiversity is crashing. Now we want to use this oak, which it is in a very purposeful way, to follow through what Ruskinian ideas. And Ruskin originally had an idea of a community in the woods. We want to revisit that. So working with the Guild, we've built a sawmill and timber yard in the heart of Ruskin land. So we're going to use the oak to add value to that material by putting it through a sawmill, and then take it a stage further into hopefully a range of accommodation and artistic interventions and craftsmanship over the next few years. So we've got a bigger vision, and that's a way of turning traditional land management on its head and adding value and beauty to something which would probably just go into the main timber supply chain. This is the last slide, and I don't think Ruskin will be very proud of our new office, which has been dropped in. But we have moved from up to St George's Farm, which we hope will be our permanent home. The porter cabin is just the first stage of what we hope will be a more beautiful redevelopment of the farm there. So we're very we've been building over the last year to get a sustainable organisation that is a platform for a lot of other things. And over the next year, we will hope to see a cultural programme developed, which will form a lottery bid. Neil and Lynne have been working hard with Jenny and me and other people on developing this programme, which will be
Yes.
Time to get on the train.
What was the time depth of so telling the story of Ruskin Land a bit more, and also revitalising it and turning it into a, which will lead into a programme mostly around making and craftsmanship into the 2019 programme. So we've got a 2-year programme. We're starting to re-manage these gilt woods and turn them into something really special, we hope. We will be taking something like 600 tonnes of timber out of the gilt woods this winter. It's a massive intervention, but it's a really important intervention if the wood is going to survive for another 100 years and be strong and be re-energised so it can support a very diverse biodiversity. We've already developed the woodyard, so we want to take that a stage further so that there are workshops that start to deliver there, and develop master planning around the rest of the site too. And the last thing that we hope to do this year is to get a new bespoke volunteer centre on the farm so that we can support all these wonderful people that add value to the work we do.